What is the rationale there?
If the enemies are stacked on top of each other, it's actually
Yeah, because it's a cylinder. Yeah, 40-foot high cylinder.
Okay, but when does that happen? And even more, Fireball goes up too. It's a 20-foot radius, so it still
versus
works
40.
there.
Now imagine you were fighting, like the big bad guy kept all of his minions in a Pringles can, an enormous 10 by 40 Pringles can.
Welcome to Monsters Multiclass, your Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Kevin Odie.
I'm Jared Bornagle.
And I'm Will Melton.
And on this episode, we are taking a look at the Genie, the new Warlock Subclass added in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So let's dive into it.
All right. No special announcements this time, right?
We're good, yeah.
Okay. I figured it'd be, best to bring up that we don't have announcements for the other two times where I forgot to bring up announcements, kind of like making up for it. So today we're going to talk about the Genies, new subclass in Tasha's for the Warlock. The entire theme of it is that there are noble genies throughout the world, and where normally, the standard approach for genies is a person finds like a lamp or something and, gets 3 wishes as this genie is now in servitude towards the mortal. These noble genies kind of flip the script, and they like to have mortals come under their service, which is a really cool way for warlocks to get the wish spell and really just make a good class in general, but I'm sure we'll get into that. So the starting off, I guess things to choose are around the type of genie you want to have. They've got 4 options for you, all relating to 4 different elements: earth, air, fire, and water. If you're not familiar with those elements, I know that's like a really new concept, which I'm super appreciative of because I have a world that has 4 gods, those being them, and it's also just like really flavor agnostic, so it's really easy to just put into any world. So always appreciative of the elemental flair.
Mm-hmm.
So any first thoughts before we get into spells and such?
Yeah, I overall in the flavor, I do like it. It is also a new kind of thing for the Warlock.
Well, this is a new Warlock, so is this like up your alley, or is this like not the direction you want to go?
This is, I don't know, this is kind of like the bottom. This is in the bottom tier of patrons for me.
Okay, just because it's not edgy enough?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. It's genies, man.
Well, I kind of like the explanation that it goes into about like why they may conscript a mortal into their service, trying to say that at least it's to expand their reach and their influence. But the thing that I don't like is I feel like they don't really explain any more as to like why that would happen, why a djinn would want to expand their reach and have influence over a certain domain. I almost wish there was like a table at the beginning that gave like a couple of examples, but with it being ambiguous, that gives you a lot of room as the DM and the player to come up with a reason why the genie wants more power. But I really couldn't think of anything just like off the bat, so I really wanted a table of some sort.
And you're totally right on that. You have to fill in the blanks here. A lot of every other Warlock patron, you have like decades and decades of lore about various patrons you can choose. This is what is a noble genie? I get the concept, but like, who is that?
It sounds like we should do a genie episode.
Oh, that's a good point. We haven't done one, have we?
As a monster, yeah.
But I still don't think noble genies ever come up. That's not like...
Yeah, this is definitely the first I've heard of it.
So maybe this would be a great place for them to expand upon in future books like Mordenkainen adjacent, where they have like a big section about genies. And I'm sure that would give tons of room for it. But otherwise, I don't know, just come up with a reason. The genie wants to own more land, so it uses
just
the warlock.
Thirst for power, just kind of sort of generic. Yeah, I want more power and influence, so I want more wealth.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead then. The expanded spell list. This is quite an extensive one, as it gives you a default expanded spell list that just anybody who's going the Genie subclass is going to get. So like one for each spell level up to 5th, and then at 9th level it gets Wish. But we'll read the specifics, but they do also get a different one depending on the element that you choose. So the Dao gets Earth-related spells. The Genie, D-J-I-N-N-I, Genie.
Should have looked up the pronunciation before this.
This is close enough. Yeah. Gets you air ones, Afridi gets flame ones, and Marid gets the water ones. So
and ice, yeah.
And
Which
ice,
I guess
yes.
is water. Yeah, that's okay. That was really pedantic. That was an unnecessary correction. Move on.
If you had said that, like, for the Genie ones, if you were like, oh, well, it's air and storm, I'd have been like, oh, yeah, you're right. That's a differentiation. But, yeah. It's just cold water.
Yeah.
All right. So the base Genie ones they get are Detect Evil and Good at 1st level, Phantasmal Force at 2nd, Create Food and Water at 3rd, Phantasmal Killer at 4th, Creation at 5th, and then Wish at 9th, which can only be taken via a Mystic Arcanum, and will probably be the one that everybody takes, but maybe not. Maybe you went this subclass for a totally different reason. Right off the bat on those couple, I feel like nothing from them.
Yeah, nothing really that great. Creation is one of those where you could get really creative with. Net creation.
Yeah,
creative. Yeah, but I mean, definitely not like a combat spell or anything like that. And also keep in mind, this is just an expended list to pick from. You don't automatically get these. So if they're picking any of these over another Warlock spell, yeah, and none of these really are jumping out as, oh yeah, that's definitely worth it, other than Wish.
Right, and not only are they picking it over another spell, if you already have picked it, then you're choosing to cast it over another spell. They aren't like wizards. They don't have, 15 spell slots once you get high up there. It's still like 2 or 3, and then you get the Mystic Arcanum, so it starts to grow a little bit. But overall, I'm going to be hard-pressed to ever use Create Food and Water when we probably have somebody else in the party who could take that and use that.
I was going to say, yeah, those like kind of utility out-of-combat spells, help out, travel, that sort of stuff, that's best left to like the clerics or druids. And
right. And you could
like
try to make the Warlock fill that niche, but it's just not going to. Again, with the unless it's like an actual class feature. When it comes to the spells, those really do need to just be saved for combat. Save for, a teleportation spell or something. I could see, sure, the Warlock takes that because it makes sense for them. The only counter I will have to that we'll see as we go further into the class as a whole is that I think this subclass is going to be the biggest spellcaster Warlock of all. Like, it just has the opportunity to cast more spells, I think, than any other Warlock. So there's possibility that maybe you could justify it, but you just still don't learn more spells than the other Warlock.
Right. Some of the Genie-specific ones are good, like the Freedy gets Fireball. That's 3rd level spells. Everyone loves a good Fireball. That would generally probably seem worthwhile for a Warlock.
I would say overall, the Afridi ones are pretty darn good. We get Burning Hands at 1st, Scorching Ray at 2nd, Fireball at 3rd, like you said, Fire Shield at 4th, and 5th level is Flame Strike. So all of those are pretty great. And
Flame Strike's pretty mediocre. I know it's your fiance's favorite spell of all time, and I think we called her out on it last time. She has fun with it, so it's great, but it's really not a great spell.
You're totally right, and that's okay. She doesn't listen to the podcast, so she's not going to be upset. So you're right. Flame Strike isn't the greatest thing in the world, but the other 4 I think are all pretty good and also pretty important. They all can be upcast, which I think is very critical when choosing your Warlock spells. Since everything gets cast at the highest level anyways, the last thing you want is a spell like Detect Evil and Good that's getting cast at 5th level.
5th level, right, yeah.
And
I mean, they can't all be, but
right.
Like Flame Strike's not upcast, or Fire Shield's not upcasted.
Correct.
But that's
Fire
just
Shield's
a really
not.
great spell anyways. That one's, it's a non-concentration 10-minute spell.
And anything that hits you, you can either do fire damage or cold damage. The Fire Shield, I think, is a really poor name for it.
Yeah, and then you gain resistance to a damage type.
And I'll still say, even if Flame Strike's not the greatest spell, my fiance's onto something. It is cool, at least. So if you're going for the flavor, it's there. But realistically, a 5th level spell that relies on a dexterity saving throw to do 8d6 damage just isn't that good. That's a 10-foot
radius,
That's a fireball.
Mm-hmm.
Fireball does 8d6 fire damage. So what is the rationale there?
If the enemies are stacked on top of each other, it's actually
because it's a cylinder. 40-foot high cylinder.
Okay, but when does that happen? And even more, Fireball goes up too. It's a 20-foot radius, so it still
versus
works
40.
there.
Now imagine you were fighting, like, the big bad guy kept all of his minions in a Pringles can, an enormous 10 by 40 Pringles can.
It would actually combo really well with if they had flying enemies and you had a graviturgy wizard who could pull enemies towards each other, and then you used Flame Strike. Yeah, what happened with Flame Strike?
Yeah, just fireball them at that point.
Yeah, it's still just fireball.
And it's only a 10-foot radius where, fireball's a 20-foot radius. It's double the size. It just doesn't have
it's a
the
cleric
40-foot
Flame
Strike.
Is.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, thematically. It's supposed to be bad. It's not supposed to be bad. It's supposed to be worse.
It's supposed to be worse than Fireball because we said so.
Yeah, clerics are the only class that it's on their spell list. Then there's, different things like this where that gets it. But yeah, so specifically then for the Genie, to have both Fireball and Flame Strike on their list is just kind of terrible.
Right. Yeah, if you're choosing both of those, you're kind of messing up here.
Yeah.
But again, they are ones you can learn. You don't have to learn them. So if it's stupid, just don't take it.
Right.
Going over some of the others for the Dao, the Earth ones, we've got Sanctuary, Spike Growth, Meld into Stone, Stone Shape, and Wall of Stone.
We've had a lot of use out of Wall of Stone. Is that what you do when you entomb people? Will? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, as we found out, I felt like Wall of Stone is a better use than, in some situations, it's a better use than, Wall of Force, because Wall of Force is translucent, so you can cast spells inside of it and teleport inside of it, whereas Wall of Stone totally breaks off line of sight. The only difference is you can just attack Wall of Stone and you can destroy it pretty easily. It's each panel has an AC 15 and 30
it's easy,
HP.
It's not fast. That's
right.
So you're not going to get through the panels in combat unless you're a siege monster, I guess.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, not all of them. You are correct. But breaking down a single panel, AC 15, 30 HP, and that's what, a 5 foot?
Inch.
Oh, per inch. Oh, that is actually pretty different. Okay,
per inch of thickness, yeah.
Yeah, and if they can be
6
inches thick. Okay, yes. All right. So yeah, I really do feel like in a lot of ways it beats out Wall of Force just because.
I thought with Wall of Force we determined you can't teleport into it.
No, that's the one thing
you can't target anybody with a spell in it. So then we're saying no.
You can Misty Step inside of it or into it because Misty Step the target is yourself. And then you move 30 feet, so you were able to. But yeah, anything that just any saves though that just require sight, like banishment, for example, that you just need to see them so you can do it. Whereas Wall of Stone totally cuts off line of sight. So I mean, there's situations for them both. I just think I was a little bit surprised to find out some of the limitations of Wall of Force that we didn't come to with Wall of Stone. Otherwise, Meld into Stone, I don't think I'd ever take, just as a warlock. I mean, it's kind of whatever.
I mean, you meld into stone. It's as useful as that seems to you.
Yeah. Some of the other ones don't really get upcast, so like Spike Growth might be useful for a little bit, but then once you're casting 3rd, 4th, 5th level spells, you shouldn't be wasting a 5th level spell on Spike Growth. It just isn't worth it. So that's, in my opinion, kind of the downside of some of these Dow spells is they don't upcast, and they're really only useful at the level you get them.
Right.
Now, can you change out Warlock spells? I forget how that works. Is it on a level up?
I believe so.
Pretty sure, yeah.
That seems fair. For the Genie, I think it's just Genie.
It's Genie.
Then why don't they just spell it Genie?
Because they're fucking with you.
Oh, they get me every time. So that gets Thunder Wave, Gust of Wind, Wind Wall, Greater Invisibility, and Seeming. All are kind of interesting.
Yeah, Greater Invisibility is, of course, great. But you would be fighting with your Hex concentration slot. They're both concentration. But tons of uses for Greater Invisibility.
Yeah, I mean, that one's kind of tough, because Hex is nice. Yeah, it adds some extra damage, but I feel like getting yourself advantage on all attacks, and all attacks against you have disadvantage, and you can't be targeted for a lot of spells that require sight.
Right.
It is competing with Hex, but I think in a lot of situations, it's winning.
Yeah.
Especially if you're using your Eldritch Blast for non-damage related reasons. Like, pushing stuff around, pulling it, all that.
Yeah.
All right, then the last one is the Marid. Just gets Fog Cloud, Blur, Sleet Storm, Control Water, and Cone of Cold, which is a great one.
Everyone loves Cone of Cold.
Otherwise,
Sleet Storm's always a little disappointing. It sounds like it should be a lot cooler than it is, but it doesn't actually do damage, right?
No, it makes them fall prone, and it makes them... So it can be nice because it forces concentration saves, but there's just better ways to do that. But
such as hitting them.
Right, and it's concentration itself. The only good part is the creature must make a successful Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC. And that can get up there pretty high, up in like 17 or so. Whereas otherwise you have to do 34 points of damage in one hit. I think we have found that more concentration checks is generally better than higher concentration checks. So hitting something with Eldritch Blast 3 times, one of those is more likely to be a 1 than you getting 34 damage and getting a 17, or forcing a 17 save. So it's interesting if it also did damage, but 3rd level spell, no reason to upcast, probably not a good pick for a Warlock.
Right, yeah.
It also doesn't really... The niche that it fits is AoE concentration breaking, which I can't think of having needed ever. But I could see a situation.
Yeah, that's mainly because as a DM, it's like the more things you have concentrating on spells, the more complicated it gets. But it is definitely a situation that you could be in. Yeah, I'm with you though. It's not that common. Not common enough that I'm like, I need that in my pocket every day. That's your like, oh, I know I'm going to go fight 3 hags today, so I guess I'll get Sleet Storm, which makes it a good preparation spell, but it's not that. All right, so let's get into the actual class itself. Starting off at 1st level, we get the Genies Vessel. So your patron gives you a magical vessel that grants you a measure of the genie's power. The vessel is a tiny object, and you can use it as a spellcasting focus for your warlock spells. You decide what the object is, or you can determine what it is randomly by rolling on the Genies Vessel table. Nothing here that's too fun, but yeah, you get an oiled lamp, of course, an urn, makes sense, ring with a compartment, stoppered bottle, hollow statuette, or an ornate lantern. Your choice. The options are endless. But more importantly, you get some actual abilities at 1st level here. The first one is Bottled Respite. As an action, you can magically vanish and enter your vessel, which remains in the space you left. The interior of the vessel is an extra dimensional space in the shape of a 20-foot radius cylinder, 20 feet high, and resembles your vessel. The interior is appointed with cushions and low tables and is a comfortable temperature. While inside, you can hear the area around your vessel as if you were in its space, and you can remain inside the vessel up to a number of hours equal to twice your proficiency bonus. You exit the vessel early if you use a bonus action, if you die, or if the vessel's destroyed, and when you exit, you appear in an unoccupied space closest to it. Any objects left in the vessel remain there until carried out, and if the vessel is destroyed, every object stored there harmlessly appears in the unoccupied space closest to the vessel's former space. And you can only enter it once per long rest.
Really long, complicated ribbon ability.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some weird situations, like it could be used for spying, I guess. Like you set up the vessel like on a table in a room where it's going to blend in, and then you disappear in the vessel, and then who's ever in there thinks they're alone and not being listened to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it has a lot of, obviously non-combat uses. That's pretty clear. But it doesn't have like an obvious mechanical use. It does something comes up later where I think at level 10, it'll give you some quick short rest, which is nice.
Yeah.
But it definitely is
level
mostly,
10,
mostly flavor. But I mean, we've had a lot of times where you guys have like this little pocket dimension thing. And often it is a easy way for, one person can get through. Well, let's go ahead and put, another person, or usually for us, the entire party in this little pocket dimension, and have that one person who can easily get through do that with the pocket dimension. A lot of words. PD for short, maybe. So, I could see a lot of, we'll say, in-game, like real situations that come up where being able to transport somebody seamlessly is helpful, or as you said, kind of like in a stealthy, being able to listen in on conversations. You just put a little urn in the room and people don't notice it. You just, I don't know, somebody else says that's my grandfather's ashes, and you just move on from it.
Sure. It is only you, though, at level 1 here.
Yes.
It's as an action when you're touching it, only you can go in the vessel. You can't bring other people in. Your whole party can't go in. Not until later.
Yeah. And I still think that's fine. Like, I think that is... It will reward creative uses until you get to that 10th level where you might be able to utilize it more because you can bring everybody in. But even at first level, I think you're just going to get a lot of unexpected uses out of it. Creative players will really be able to thrive with these types of things. Yeah.
Definitely does kind of act as a bag of holding.
Yeah.
Like a limited bag of holding.
Yeah, pretty small one. Say it's like a 20 by 20 room, basically.
It is not explicit, and you can only about this. I was wondering.
Enter it once per day.
I mean, that's annoying, but bag of holdings are really, really useful.
Mm-hmm.
So for a ribbon ability, that's kind of great.
Right. And, on top of all of that, you also just get a sick pad that you get to, like, carry around with you all the time. And it just sounds like a really fun place to hang out.
You can also get in there and your bud can, like, chuck you in a window.
Oh, my gosh. That's a really funny thought, actually.
Yeah.
Kind of like how we were joking about the talisman, being able to like tie that around a creature's neck, like a bird or something. You just
yeah.
Oh, that'd be such a good prank to pull on the Genie Warlock. Is they go into their lamp for their long rest at the end of the night, and you just take them, attach them to a wolf or something, and just send it into the woods. I don't know how you wrangle.
Just climb up the tree and like tie it to a branch that's really high up.
Right.
They're like, oh, what a good morning. Just walk out of it and just whoa.
Right. Once you reach 9th level, you could take a whole long rest in there because it's double your proficiency bonus, right? In hours. Yeah. So at 9th level, that goes up to 4. So then you could get a full 8 hours.
Yeah,
in there.
Definitely pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so I can't think of any reason to use this in combat. Unless you're doing the type of thing where the monsters like telegraph big attacks. Like some people will have like the dragon, before they do the breath attack, they'll take a deep breath to warn you.
Sure.
or something. I could see using your action to pop in here. And like the vessel would then get destroyed, but you'll be fine.
Right.
So,
Potentially
if there's that
negating-
sort of stuff going on.
Right. Potentially negating, 100 points of damage. It's like, yeah, I guess I can
Right.
deal without my vessel for an hour.
Right.
Until all your nudie mags that you're storing in there pop out harmlessly and the dragon laughs at you.
Right.
And you take 100 psychic damage anyways. Because the DM's like, stop popping into the jar every time there's a big attack coming.
Yeah. I mean, if you are about to die just in general in combat, just popping in there. If you have it up. So it's for some reason they don't put this in the same paragraph, but it's important to the first one. The vessel's AC equals your spell save DC. So that can get up there. At level 1, it's not going to be high, and its hit points is your warlock level plus your proficiency bonus.
Okay, so it
has
nothing.
a little bit, yeah.
But if you're
if it's
using
destroyed,
if you're using it to get around a big attack, though, I doubt it's going to be any better.
Right. Yeah, if it's destroyed, you do lose it, but you can perform a 1-hour ceremony to receive a replacement from your patron. You could do this during a short or long rest. The previous one is destroyed if it still exists. So, yeah, there's uses.
Yeah, I think a ton. And again, as I said earlier, just a creative player, somebody who wants to use this a lot, is probably going to be able to find a lot of ways to get some value, some unexpected value out of it.
Yeah, the once per long rest feels really limiting, though, for what it is. I would almost like to see more tied to your proficiency bonus per long rest.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that was to avoid abuse at the 10th level ability, where you can bring in other people and take a short rest in 10 minutes.
That's a fair point. But they could just added that, once to that.
Right. You could only bring other people in for a rest once per long rest. Okay, that makes sense. And everybody's happy and understands the reasons why. But, oh well. All right, so next ability, still level 1 here, is Genie's Wrath. Once during each of your turns, when you hit with an attack roll, you can deal extra damage to the target equal to your proficiency bonus. The type of this damage is determined by your patron. Bludgeoning for the Earth Genie, Thunder for the Air, Fire for the Fire, and Cold for the Water. The vessel's AC equals your spell save DC, which is what Kevin already talked about, and it can be destroyed. So, okay. Important thing here is that you get some extra damage equal to your proficiency bonus. And I think this is crazy good for multiclassing.
Yes,
because tied to your proficiency bonus, it's just some free extra damage. You're never going to turn that down. Comparing it to the Fathomless that just came out, it's officially a little bit weaker, but it also doesn't take your bonus action.
Right, and also they don't get battled Respite.
Right, of course.
Yeah, they get both at level 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Genie's Wrath thing here, that you do have to be touching the vessel as well. It is linked to that. So just something to keep in mind if you lose it. If it gets destroyed because you were hiding from the Dragon's Breath or whatever, you do lose this ability until you could get it back.
Where does it say that? I'm trying to...
Well, it's at the top of it all. So this is all just one class feature, Genie's Vessel level 1. And then while you are touching the vessel, you could use it in the following ways: Bottled Respite, Genie's Wrath.
There we go. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a little confusing how it's laid out.
A little bit, but I wouldn't have done anything better, so it's fine. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really like this. As I said, I think Warlock is always a strong pick for multiclassing. This makes it look really good as well. The only time I would avoid it as a multiclass is if you were looking to do a full spellcaster as your other one that you choose, because you'll probably not be making many attack rolls. You'll just be casting spells, which have obviously other things, unless you're doing Scorching Ray all the time, but that's your business and you can do it. But works really well for a straight Warlock casting Eldritch Blast all the time. Works really well for a martial multiclass. I don't know. I love it.
That's pretty nice. It's at first it's kind of on par with like a Barbarian's Rage. It's +2.
Yeah.
And I mean, then as barbarians get higher, their rage damage does go up, but not by a whole lot. But they do get more attacks.
Yeah, I would say, and more importantly, barbarians can add rage damage on every attack that hits.
Yeah.
This is once per turn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's damage-wise, it is nothing crazy. And that's, I think, why I'm liking it so much, is because it doesn't get out of hand. It just starts at, +2 for your proficiency bonus, goes all the way up to +6. It's just one of those things that every time it comes up, you're like, sweet, that was a good hit. You know, your Eldritch Blast does 2 damage, you only roll a 2. Well, good thing I've got +6 for my proficiency bonus, and I've got +5 from my charisma. So my minimum damage is 12 on this one.
Right.
In that scenario I set up, it was 13, but that's besides the point. I was giving a minimum damage.
Yeah.
All right. Next is Elemental Gift. So this is the 6th level feature. You begin to take on characteristics of your patron's kind. You now have resistance to a damage type determined by your patron's kind. Bludgeoning for earth, thunder for air, fire for fire, and cold for water. In addition, as a bonus action, you can give yourself a flying speed of 30 feet that lasts for 10 minutes, during which you can hover. You can use this bonus action a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest.
So, free fly speed. It's great. Non-concentration. Tons of uses for that. In combat, out of combat. You'll use those up all the time. Even just for fun, in town days, whatever. Flying around.
I'm honestly a little surprised it's not once per long rest. The fact that it's tied to your proficiency bonus makes this really strong.
Right. That being said, there's tons of races who just get a flying speed.
It's not tons of races. There's one.
I think there's 2 now.
Aarakocras?
You can put wings on a tiefling.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's like a flying tiefling variant. I think there's something else too.
Maybe the fairy UA, but that's not official just yet.
Right.
So there's not, I won't say there's a ton of races that get flying speed.
But either way, there are ways to get a permanent flying speed at level 1. So obviously they don't consider that to be crazy powerful. And I know the community differs, but...
Yeah, there's a lot of disparity on that one.
Yeah. The resistance, of course, the resistance is always nice. I feel like the bludgeoning resistance is probably going to come up a lot more than, say, like the thunder or the cold. But it kind of is campaign dependent. And
yeah, I still don't even think bludgeoning comes up that much. Like, specifically bludgeoning. Usually it's going to be piercing and slashing, but it definitely comes up. And the times that your resistance comes up, you're going to be very happy. Otherwise, kind of take it or leave it.
Right.
But it's good. It's just a nice boost.
Is bad.
Yeah, there's not a lot that does thunder.
Yeah.
Fire, though, that comes up a lot.
Fire damage is a thing? Didn't know that. It's like second most resisted thing by monsters.
Right.
Also good if you are constantly casting Fireball on yourself.
Sure. Oh, can Warlocks get delayed Fireball? That would be a good use for your bottle Respite. Pop out the delayed Fireball at your feet and then, like, disappear into the vessel.
That's a good question. And I'm sure as I'm looking this up, it is on the screen because you already put it up there. But not for us because we're doing this live. It's delayed blast Fireball. I hate that. Sorcerers and wizards, that's it.
Okay.
So, no, Warlocks cannot get it unless they had a way to cast Wish and just get whatever spell they wanted.
Right.
But how would they ever get that? So, yeah, Elemental Gift, I think it's a good one. Good 6th level feature. Most of the time, the Warlock 6th level ability isn't anything game-breaking. I would put this on the more powerful side, though, just because of that fly speed. No concentration. I mean, that's just, I don't know. That's good.
Yeah, for sure.
10th level, we've got Sanctuary Vessel. When you enter your Genie's Vessel via the Bottled Respite feature, you can now choose up to 5 willing creatures that you can see within 30 feet of you, and the chosen creatures are drawn into the vessel with you. As a bonus action, you can push them out, which would be really funny, but I don't know what other use you'd have. In addition, anyone, including you, who remains within the vessel for at least 10 minutes gains the benefit of finishing a short rest, and anyone can add your proficiency bonus to the number of HP they regain if they spend any hit dice as part of a short rest here.
This one's like right on the fence for me because like on paper sounds really great, really useful, quick short rest. But at the same time, I think you say this a lot, Jared. If you have 10 minutes, you probably have an hour.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. Now, there are definitely times where I think quests are very time sensitive. And maybe it's like you don't even consider the idea of taking a short rest because you might not get attacked in that hour, but there is a clock ticking down and you need to deal with whatever that is. Having the option of taking a 10-minute short rest, I think, becomes a lot more palatable in those situations.
That's true. Also, this would be safer in a dungeon. Like, you probably would not roll for a random encounter, like if you are one to do that.
That's a good point. Yeah, so for a standard dungeon crawl, this could be your one free short rest, even ignoring the 10-minute requirement here.
Right.
I would think you'd have to have a pretty mean DM to say that, oh, this random monster sees your urn on the ground and it just destroys it.
Right. Or takes it with it.
Now, that would be
that could
funny.
be kind of fun. Would be fun. That could be kind of fun.
But at least you get the short rest, which they had to take anyways. And it's the difference between getting your short rest interrupted and having to have a fight or finishing your short rest and having a fight. And I know which one I would want to choose.
Right. And you would know what's happening. It's as you could hear as if you're in that space. It's not like a muffle or anything. So
right. You can come out prepared. You basically get a surprise round on them.
Probably, yeah.
I would most likely lean that direction because the creature holding it isn't like, I've got my timer set. I saw them go in at 9 minutes and 30 seconds. So I will make sure to hold my fireball for when they come out.
Right. And they could stay in here for as long as the Warlock could stay in here, which at this point is 8 hours. Right. So if you don't use it throughout the day, this could then be a safe long rest.
Yeah. And it sounds really strong, but, it basically falls under the same principles of Leomund's Tiny Hut, which there are ways to get around that spell, meaning that, like, a lot of DMs might look at that and go, like, oh, no, they can just completely hide while, the day goes by. But it's the same thing as a third-level ritual spell in that regard. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and I do think it's kind of funny just looking at it, because at this point, it reminds me a lot of the magic item I gave you guys, where it's just a little place that you and your party can all hang out, and I guess you couldn't really store other people in it. And you can't, can you? What is it? When you enter your Genie's Vessel via the Bottle of Respite, you can add other people. So you couldn't say just like, hey, get in here and we're going to, take you with us somewhere, unless the Warlock also went in, potentially taking them out of any future engagements.
Right.
The only thing left is that you get that proficiency bonus added to HP if people spend their hit dice at all.
Nice little bonus. Nothing.
Yeah.
It's not worth using your once per long rest enter the battle for, I don't think. No. But if you're doing that anyways, then sure, nice little bonus.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't need it. It's pretty strong as it is, but I almost wish it was temporary HP. So that way it just would add, even if you used a long rest, then, okay, now everybody's starting with 5 extra temp HP. Or after the short rest again, 5 temp HP. Because I find a lot of times when you have that ability, there's like a feat that does this, or maybe a bard feature, I don't remember, that people get additional HP if they already use their hit dice. Hit dice normally don't go to exactly the amount that you need to get to full HP. Like, I generally see if you're using hit dice, you're probably using it to get to full, unless it's been a really challenging day. And the difference between 5 HP and rolling another hit dice is like, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
All right. Last ability is Limited Wish. So this is at 14th level. This is like a really long explanation to just say that they get basically Wish at 6th level. They can cast spells or lower instead of it being at 8th level or lower, and they can't really use it for anything else. The spell has to have a casting time of 1 action, so it can't be like a 10-minute spell cast in 1 action. The spell can be from any class list, doesn't need to meet the requirements of the spell, including costly components. The spell simply takes effect as part of this action. So just you get a 6th level spell or lower on any spell list, that's 1 action. Really, really awesome. Then at the end of it says, once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish 1d4 long rests. Which is a new thing. I don't think that's anywhere else.
No. So this is definitely the potential to be powerful. A lot of spells out there. 6th level spells get pretty high. You can do expensive resurrections and things like that. Transportation. Like a lot of the teleport spells and stuff are 6th level.
Yeah, transport via plants is 6th level, as we've found out over and over again recently. Teleportation circle is 5th level, but teleport, I think, is 7th level.
Okay.
But even then, I mean, 6th level spells or lower for free, well, for an action, and no real other repercussions. I mean, it's kind of a simplistic 14th level ability, but, just to gauge our feelings on it, maybe we should just reread the Fathomless's 14th level ability and then talk about which one's better.
Right.
If you did not check out the Fathomless episode or have not read through that subclass yourself yet, that allows you to teleport from one body of water to another within a mile, as long as it's the size of a pond. Very useful, going to be used multiple times a day, probably.
Actually, you don't need to be at water to start.
Oh, okay, you can just go to a body of water. Never mind.
Really within a mile. Within a mile.
Yeah, okay, so...
It's not good!
Yes, that's the true point of this, is that compared to the other one, this is the greatest 14th level ability I've ever seen. That said, Warlock's 14th level, I mean, it's their subclass capstone. It's usually pretty good. But this one is definitely going to get used very, very often, and I could see it being just very intense moments. As you said, it gives you access to resurrection magic, ignoring components, ignoring everything, and... I mean, the only downside is then you can't use it for 1d4 long rests, which has a 25% chance of just being 1 long rest.
Right.
So,
yep.
Just next time.
It's not too bad. It's definitely very flavorful. Fits very well for this class. Just getting a wish.
Yeah. And then even more, I know, as we've kind of already mentioned, at 17th level, when they get their final Mystic Arcanum and it's a 9th level spell, they can choose Wish. So they could also get access to then every 8th level spell or lower. In that case, it's once per day. And there's no long rest waiting on that one. And the only thing I'd mention is that if you did take or use Wish, obviously you get that ability to use Wish for something other than a spell. And that's usually pretty tempting, but everybody has heard the monkey paws of that just going really poorly. But I think it would be particularly difficult to justify as a warlock, because one of the worst parts of using it outside of recreating an 8th level spell is the fact that you potentially lose the ability to cast Wish ever again. And warlocks, I believe, do not get a way to change out their Mystic Arcanums.
I think they do now in Tasha's with the optional class feature.
Oh, did they ease up on that?
I think so. Eldritch Versatility.
That was correct, though.
Yeah,
those
if you're
used
12th
to be
level or
the
higher.
permanent choice.
Right.
You're right. If you're 12th level or higher, replace one spell from your Mystic Arcanum feature. Okay, all right. So if you lost Wish, you'd at least be able to switch it out. Now, officially, that only happens when you hit an ability score improvement level.
Right.
So
that's not every level up.
And, we're talking about this. High level play just doesn't exist, so this might be a pointless conversation, but let's say you're 20th level, you use your Wish for something, and you lose the ability to cast Wish ever again. Most likely you were saving that for like an end of campaign reason anyways, so it's probably not that big of a deal and more just a good flavor moment.
Right.
Honestly, with a genie for a patron, I would almost make the wish, like, if you want to do a high level play, this would be great for it. You make the wish, the DM's a little bit more lenient about what's allowed to be wished for, and you just lose all your warlock powers.
Oh, okay.
It's like the ultimate goal of being a genie patron warlock.
Oh, okay. So that's actually a good idea of like your reason for going into servitude with this genie is you need access to a wish spell for something, but you've heard everything bad that can happen with a wish spell. So you basically make a deal with them. I will work for you for this extended period of time and help you complete your goal. And in payment, I want to be able to use a wish without getting screwed over.
I mean, it's elaborate and it's a 17th level play, but sure.
Yeah, but it's a good,
it's
like,
cool.
It's a long-term character goal.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah. Your character's reason for adventuring.
Right.
Yeah,
it's usually good to
lot.
have, Will. You know, a reason for adventuring.
The call of adventure is my reason for adventuring.
I can't argue, but I can still be upset.
Yeah.
All right. And that's all of it. I mean, not too complicated of a class. The only final thoughts I have on it is that if you did plan to get this to a higher level, I don't really think this is a class I'd suggest for even a mid-level player, like somebody who's kind of familiar with the game, because once you get access to, you know, every 6th level spell or lower, you really gotta like know the spells.
Yeah.
And we've been playing now for 5 or 6 years, whatever length of time.
Since it came out. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you told me just like, you know, hey, how many 6th level spells can you name off the top of your head? I got nothing. Transport via plants, as we discussed.
The ones I literally
Disintegrate.
have used in the last week.
Right. But otherwise, I mean, that's a lot. And then you get to then Wish at 17th level, and you now have access to every 8th level spell or lower. To some extent, you got to be pretty familiar with what tools you have available, or else you might fall into a trap where you have access to these 6th level spells and you just keep using like the same ones over and over again, where you're like, oh, I guess I'll just use Evard's Black Tentacles, which I think is a 6th level spell.
I think it's 5th, but yeah.
Is it 5th? Okay, yeah. My point exactly.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. That being said, I would not turn a new player away from this one. There's a really good chance you wouldn't get to 14th. If you do, then they've been playing for a long time at that point. And people can just sit there and pore over the spell books and look for really cool things and make notes of them, and it's fine.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. I think it's something to prepare them if you knew that the campaign was going to get to high levels. If it wasn't even going to get to 14th, then who cares? It doesn't affect it at all. But if you're like, hey, we're starting at 12th level and this is your first time playing, I know you like the flavor of the Genie Warlock, but like maybe let's do something a little simpler this time around. But I feel that way in general about full spellcasters. If it's somebody's first time playing, I'm not like, hey, you should pick a cleric. They're super easy to understand. You want to get a little bit comfortable with the game normally.
Right.
But
Moon Druid,
yeah, super easy one for your very first character. Oh, we did that to somebody, didn't we? Well, we didn't do that to them. They wanted to play.
Force them. Yeah, they just wanted to. But and I mean, it was fine. It was just definitely did slow things down a bit, but that's okay.
Yes,
everyone needs to learn.
Yeah, and we were all still learning then too. But all right, anything else around the Genie Warlock?
It sounds fun. You would definitely need to, I think, make up the patron, work with the DM, give them personality, because there's not really any built-in like big name genie out there that I'm aware of. I'm sure there are, but I'm blanking. Definitely nothing like real famous.
Obviously, the Afridi in White Plume Mountain.
Sure.
Who doesn't have a name, I don't think.
But isn't he under service of the wizard? Like,
probably.
That Afridi didn't like make White Plume Mountain.
I have no idea. It doesn't matter. It's just the only genie I could possibly think of in all of the games we've ever played that actually was like set in place. That's it.
Yeah.
Now that said, Will, I'm still really curious about this wish character. So I'm gonna force you to answer something for me. All right. If you had a character whose like one goal was to get a wish, what would it be? Are you screwing with the DM or what are you doing?
Maybe you're screwing with the DM. Maybe it's like end this 1,000-year war. Whereas that would be like a really risky wish for a normal person. Maybe if you worked with the genie, he'd cut you some slack.
That's actually kind of interesting. Like literally, instead of trying to go through all of the hoops of fixing the problem and like actually, dealing with both sides, coming to an agreement, you just wish for it to be over. But make sure that it will actually work. That's pretty good. I think what I would wish for is that all of our listeners and viewers go check out our Dice affiliate, Metallic Dice Games, and use the code MM10 to get 10% off their orders.
That was fantastic. I'm
Thank
so
you.
proud of you, Jared.
A lot of setup for that one.
I would say, at what point did you realize that's how you're going to do it?
Very beginning. Well, I mean, when I started saying that to Will in the first place,
okay.
I'll say that. So yes, if you're looking for some pretty dice or dice accessories, you can use the code MM10, get 10% off your order. Helps the show as we get a portion of that. And of course, you get 10% off your order if I didn't say that enough. But I believe that's where we'll cut things off here. If you are not yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel or wherever you get your podcast, as well as leave comments, leave ratings, tell friends, tell enemies about our show, whatever you want to do. And if you're not yet, follow us on social media. And of course, thank you to all of our patrons whose names I don't have up in front of me. Kevin, pause. And we're back. Thank you to our patrons, Jeff W., Joe P., Vincent M., Isaac M., Sentinel D20, Star Shinobi, Adam A., and Home Bakery. You all are awesome, and if you want to support the show, you can go to monstersmulticlass.com/support, where you can find our Dice affiliates, merch, and our Patreon. You could be a patron, and we'll give you Eldritch Blast. That's in the contract.
Cool. Is that all?
That's all I got.
All right. Thanks for watching.